Guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about tips for studying medical billing and coding. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Okay, guys. So whether you are just interested in studying medical billing and coding and you're going to go the self-study route, or maybe you started in a program and you feel kind of like overwhelmed because it's like self-paced and you can work at your leisure. The thing that you got to know is this: when it comes to studying medical billing and coding, the best thing to do is jump in and not think about it too hard, okay? So a lot of people will say, well, I don't even know where to start. Here's the best thing that you should do if you don't know where to start. If you have no background in medical at all, right? You're coming from retail or the food service industry or wherever, and you have no background in medical, that's okay. The best place for you to start is with medical terminology, because that's your foundation. That is going to help you know what codes to look up, what certain words mean, because there's some words in medical terminology that are very closely related to each other, or they sound similar, but they mean two different things. So that's the thing that you have to understand. Before you start overthinking things, if you have not had a background in medical at all, you need to start with the medical terminology, because that will help you to segue into anatomy and physiology and pathophysiology and all that good stuff. So those are your core concepts that you got to master when you're first getting into this, right? When you're first learning this. Because whether you are learning on your own or whether you are going through a program, that's where it's all going to start. Now, some programs don't have that. It's a supplemental part, for like medical terminology and anatomy that is separate from the coding. And a lot of people think that they can just skip that because they think that medical coding is all, it's automated. And so, it's going to be the electronic health record doing it. So you don't really have to know all that. Well, that's a load of garbage. Because if I ever heard any of a load of garbage before, because of the simple fact that how are you supposed to know if the codes are correct if you don't understand the language, okay? And the thing that I will say is this, is that a lot of people will say, well, I just don't know which book to get. I'm looking at all these different books. I'm looking at the reviews. You need to stop all that. Just stop. Because whether you go to the public library and get a workbook for medical terminology or even anatomy, or you go on YouTube and go on Crash Course on YouTube, there's all these options out there for learning literally the same thing. Everybody has, medical terminology, anatomy, and pathophysiology, all these things, they're not different. They're just taught differently, but they're not different. There is no new body parts, although there is a new organ out that is very small that they just discovered, but you're not discovering any new body parts. So whichever medical terminology book that you pick up, that's fine. And it doesn't matter if it was from the 70s, it doesn't matter if it was from the 80s or the 90s. It doesn't matter. The thing is that you're going to get a good understanding. You just want a foundational understanding. At least understand your bones. At least understand your organs and what they do. And so those are the types of things that you're going to be learning when you're learning anatomy, right? Or when you're trying to learn medical terminology, you're learning your prefixes, your suffixes, and your root words. So that way you can piece words together rather than trying to learn big, massive words. And there's fun ways of learning medical terminology. I've said this in several other videos, but I'm going to bring it up again because people are just running around in circles. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And medical terminology is so hard. No, it's not. Medical terminology is one of the more easier things that you'll have to learn. It's just a lot if you're brand new. But there's fun things that you can do to help yourself to learn medical terminology. You can watch videos, not just on YouTube, but you can watch series like House, right? Where they use, it's a House MD was the show, right? And if you're not familiar, it was about this brilliant doctor who had a few, things that he enjoyed doing, right? And without going into it too much, he had a few things he enjoyed doing. And so, but he was very arrogant and, but he was really brilliant and he knew how to take care of patients. And so they're using a lot of medical terminology. It is a drama, but it is not drama like Grey's Anatomy where everybody's, hanging out and doing things with each other. This is more about the medicine side of it. And so while it's not technical, you're still listening to the medical terms. So that can help you to kind of like get immersed into that world of medicine, so that way you're starting to listen to that kind of thing. And then watching videos on YouTube like Crash Course, where they have all kinds of anatomy videos, medical terminology, pathophysiology videos. That's going to help you to immerse yourself in that. And that's where you start. Get yourself a workbook, and you can get any workbook on medical terminology or even anatomy and physiology, and just start. Just literally sit down and start. There are no apps. Do not ask me about apps. I am a lover of books. I will always advocate for people, especially when you're getting into this industry, to use books, because yes, while there's all this technology out there, all these apps and things like that, apps need to be updated. Apps go down after a while. And after a while, you're not going to want to be staring at the computer screen or your tablet or your phone all day. It's nice to give your eyes a break. So that's why I will always advocate for books. Books are free, or they're cheap, or even if they're expensive, you can still go to the public library. I don't know why people don't think to go to the public library, but they don't. And if you're saying to me, well, Blue, I can't afford it. I mean, again, there are so many free resources out there for learning medical billing and coding. It's not even funny. And then just trying to be like aware. Okay, I go to the library and I can see if they have any medical terminology workbooks or anatomy workbooks, which they will, right? And then you can see if they have any medical coding books. Now, the medical coding books, the test prep manuals, they might be a few years old, but if they're like 2022, somewhere around there, that's not bad. You can still use 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. It's fine. Obviously you don't want to go back further than that, but I mean, it just all depends. So, but if you get a workbook that's a few years old, that's okay too, because all you're doing is just using it to practice. And there's plenty of discounted books out there, as far as like for on the Optum website, you can go and order the ICD-10-CM and the ICD-10-PCS if that's part of your exam. And if you haven't watched a lot of my videos, go back through and you'll see a lot of those like advices about which credentials and things like that. But just something to get you started. The public library is a great place to go, and utilizing YouTube and seeing all the resources that are out there. Crash Course is not the only channel. There's several channels out there on YouTube specifically related to anatomy, medical terminology, and pathophysiology. And so that will help you. So when you're incorporating all that time, you're getting started. Because again, you don't have to sit here and ask 200 people for their opinion on flashcard decks, or which book do you recommend. Pick a book and go. Pick a book and start. All you have to do is just open up the book and start reading and start working through it. Get yourself a notebook, just any notebook. You can go to, Walgreens or your local grocery store. They have ones for 97 cents. Walmart has theirs for 97 cents. And you just start writing down. Just start going through and just start working through those medical terminology things. You can go on Quizlet. Quizlet has a lot of flashcard decks for those of you who insist on being on the internet. Flashcards are on there aplenty, okay? Now, sometimes you have to kind of watch because some of the answers are wrong. But it's people who make these. So, but it could still be used to help you to get started, okay? But it's just all the questions of where do I start? If you have not had any background in medical, you need to start with medical terminology, anatomy, and pathophysiology. That's where you need to start, okay? So that way you can get that good foundation going. When you start getting into the coding part, right? And yes, there's reimbursement, there's all these other things. But just getting through this first part and starting is going to help you get that ball going. Now, for the coding part, when you start getting ready to study the coding, you do need to be reading the coding guidelines. The coding guidelines are free. I will leave the link for the 2025 ICD-10-CM coding guidelines from CMS that is free in the description box below. So even if you don't have a current coding manual right now, a current ICD-10-CM book, that's okay. You can still read the coding guidelines for free. And you're not meant to understand the coding guidelines right out of the gate. It's not going to make sense. It's going to sound very foreign to you. But when you start studying and when you start working through the workbook and when you start working through the coding manuals, it's going to start making sense after a while. It's not going to make sense right out of the gate, and that's what trips up a lot of people, is where they think that, oh, this doesn't make sense and I'm so frustrated with this and I feel so stupid. You're allowing a subject that you're just starting to learn to make you feel stupid, really? When think about it, doctors get 10 or 15 years to fully develop as a doctor. You are giving yourself 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months. If your program is shorter than that, you need to be spending more time with studying, okay? 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months is what you need to be spending. Because it doesn't matter what the schools promise, you cannot learn medical terminology and all this stuff that you got to learn about coding. You cannot learn it all in 4 months or less, even if you're a nurse, doesn't matter. Nurses, they get caught into that trap because there's a lot of people that will take advantage of nurses because they say, oh, well, it should be easy for nurses. No, it's not easy for them either. It's just like it's not easy for doctors to understand. Nurses often have a hard time understanding what the guidelines mean and things like that. So that's why I'm telling you all, everybody is the same. Everybody starts at ground zero and everybody has to apply themselves when it comes to studying. But the whole thing is to start. That's the whole thing. Now, whether you're listening to the coding guidelines, the instructions I do have, you can purchase those, because when I posted them before, people were disrespectful and rude for a free resource. So now I have to charge for it. I mean, I didn't want to, but that's the result of what I get, because I would get so many nasty emails from people. Oh, Blue, it just put me to sleep. Well, then you just picked the wrong field then, didn't you? Because it's not supposed to be a performing circus animal that's entertaining you. It is knowledge. It is our guidelines. It's our rules. It's our laws. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it boils down to. It's what we go by. These are our standards. These are our rules. And so, but you need to read them in order to understand. And not only that, reading the guidelines, actually going through and reading them, even if you're going through, I've recommended reading the guidelines in their entirety twice and then focus on the chapter specific guidelines. So that way you're going to get practice with everything else, but it's a chapter specific guidelines that you really need to focus on. Okay. And so when you're focusing on those chapter specific guidelines, you're going to become a faster reader. And being a faster reader will help you when you start to go to take your exam, because these exams, the question amount, the time allotted, average per question. Now, some you'll go through faster than others, but with AAPC, if you're taking a CPC exam, it is 2 minutes, 40 seconds per question. If you're taking an AHEMA exam, the CCS, the Gold Standard of Medical Coding Credentials, the CCA, or the CCSP, they give you just over 2 minutes per question average. So, I mean, it's a little bit shorter on the time, but you need to be quick. And the only way you can be quick is if you're practicing on your reading, you're practicing going through your workbooks, and you're practicing going through and looking at all of these things and studying. Because no amount of somebody telling you to do this or do that, or going to these exam prep classes is going to help you if you're not putting in the work yourself. Now, yes, I mean, it may be beneficial to you to go through an exam prep. But again, if you are not putting in the time, there's nothing that you can learn in that exam prep that will help you in time. There is nothing in the exam prep that will help you in time if you are not putting in the effort to learn all the things that you need to learn. And there's medical reimbursement as well. You know, you're going to learn about like medical billing, right? And even though you don't want to be a biller, it doesn't matter. We still have to learn about the reimbursement side of the house. You do not have to go into billing if you only want to be a coder, but that's often an option for people to just start in the industry, is in billing, okay? But if you don't want to do that, don't do it. Don't do it. You know, a lot of people want to sit here and argue about that. I don't see why. It doesn't matter to me. I've already told you guys, when you're out there applying, I've given plenty of advice on how to apply so that you can be successful and you can get the attention of the employer. You know, it's up to you to listen. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, you know? So with that said, but that's what you do. You start. You start. Don't tab up your books. Don't write. Don't highlight. All of those things are wastes of time. What you need to do is actually sit with your coding workbooks when you get to that coding portion and actually work through the actual book. Actually open up the book and work through it. And before you say, well, Blue, why do you got to say it like that? Because people will still stand around when I tell them, work through the ICD-10-CM and ICD-10-PCS Coding Handbook with the Answers. That is one book. That's the title of the book, okay? It's by Nellie Leon Chizen. And people will still ask me, well, what do I do? You work through the workbook. You open it up and you use your coding manuals to look up the answers. You cover up the answers because the answers are there in the workbook, but you're able to cover them up, okay? So you can just look at the question and look up the code and things like that. Practicing looking up the code is very beneficial to you because it's going to get you more comfortable with the book. You're going to get faster with it over time. And again, if you're putting in the time like you're supposed to at the 20 hours per week, you will be fine. But not a moment sooner, okay? And like I said, asking people, 100 people for their opinion on which book to get and which book is the best, and oh, well, which coding exam prep book is the best? Actually, the coding exam prep books are really not necessary. The exam prep books are not necessary. Why do I say that? Because it's really kind of meant to, like, okay, if you want to practice, you know, the test, you know, this is the kind of format that it's going to be in, but it doesn't, none of those questions are going to be on the test. And I have to say this because there's people that will say, well, I memorized all those questions and all the answers, and none of those questions were on the exam. Why would you even think that they would be on the exam? Because then there would be no way to judge people's competence if the questions that were in the prep book were on the exam. That's just ridiculous. That is the most ridiculous thing ever. But people ask it. And I'm telling you now that you don't really need a coding prep book, like an exam prep book. But if you want to get it, it's fine. But if you've been practicing and going through the workbooks, like I tell y'all to, and the workbooks that I recommend are in the description box below, that will help you because you will be prepared. You'll know about the coding. You'll understand about the sequencing and about all these things that you have to know when it comes to the coding side. Now, as far as like the billing side, there's books that I recommend for that as well in the description box. Or you can look up what you don't understand. You can do a simple Google search. Okay? It doesn't take that you have to go through all these things or buy all these books or buy these programs in order to understand. This is very much self-driven. Learning medical billing and coding is very much self-driven. I've done demonstrations a couple weeks ago about how to study the ICD-10-CM coding guidelines. So hopefully you'll go back and check out my videos from before where I have those, where I talk about more study tips and things. But this one is mainly about just start. You know, a lot of people just waste time asking questions, standing around asking questions. And then what happens is you're standing around asking questions. You go into a Facebook group and you say, well, I don't know where to start. And then you hear all these people complaining, or you hear all of them, you know, giving their horror stories or about anything that is, oh no, you can't pass, or you can't get a job, or it doesn't pay. That's the other thing that gets me too. Like, how can y'all want to just start immediately at a high salary and not work your way up. Because any of you that started anywhere else, even my nurses, you didn't start off with that high salary. You started off on the low end, just like everybody else, and you worked your way up. Same thing with my sonographers. Y'all did the same thing too. So why y'all act like, oh, well, no, it doesn't pay anything? Then you're applying at the wrong place, or you don't know how to let the employer know about your skills, you know? Because sometimes, like, especially if you're trying to go into something like a private doctor's office, which I tell y'all not to do, because they have to watch that money so carefully. That's when they're going to want to try to pay you least, you know. But if you go into a hospital where you can get more opportunities, there's inpatient opportunity and outpatient opportunities working at a hospital. I know because I work on the outpatient side in a hospital. So, but with that said, yes, get yourself on a good schedule that's 20 hours per week. Like I said, 3.5 hours per day, 5 days a week, that's 17.5 hours. And then you have 2.5 hours on a Saturday or Sunday that you could be studying, okay? And you spend that time studying. You study for 30 minutes at a time or 1 hour at a time, and then you take a break and you keep moving forward. You listen to videos, that's study time. You're working through your workbook, that's study time. You're reading the coding guidelines, that's study time. The coding guidelines should be read 1 time per week. And like I said, again, if you have watched my video from before about the how to study the ICD-10 CM coding guidelines, you will know that you're not going to read the whole thing. You're not going to keep reading the whole thing. You're going to read the chapter-specific guidelines after a while. After you've gone through the whole guidelines twice, then you're going to read just the chapter-specific guidelines, so that way you can get that knowledge in under your belt. Because for everybody that's confused about sequencing, whenever I hear, oh, I don't know how to sequence the guidelines, it's literally right there. It's giving you the direction. When you're looking up codes, it's also giving you directions. And it's also letting you know, use additional, which means that code's going to go second. Code first, which means there's another code that's going to go before that code that you just found. So that's how you understand and know the sequencing. Sequencing is going to go based on what the patient presented for. What are they here for? What is their problem? What did the doctor finally diagnose them with? If there's other conditions going on, we're going to look at which one is the most severe, which one did the doctor spend most time with, which one did the doctor have to do any kind of medical decision making on. That's how we start to do that. Again, I've talked about sequencing in other videos as well. I may be doing a newer one. But that's just what you have to study, okay? And 20 hours does seem like a long time, especially if you have a 40-hour week, 40-hour per week job. But it's going to go in a blink of an eye really quickly, and you want to be prepared for your exam. So that's what it will take. You cannot cheat your way through this exam. None of these exams. Because even if by some miracle you're able to guess your way through a test and pass, when you get out in the real world, you will be assessed again. You will take an assessment test. Doesn't matter if you have experience or no experience. You will be given an assessment test because they do need to know what your capabilities are and what your competence level is. Because having a credential doesn't mean anything if you don't understand what is going on with the coding, okay? So my advice is that you just pick up and start. Quit asking questions, quit looking around, quit wasting time. Pick a thing and go. Go to the public library. Find a medical terminology workbook, a pathophysiology workbook, an anatomy physiology workbook, any of those things. You can pick those up. Oh, they're not at my public library. Okay, well then go to YouTube. Type in crash course. You will find all their videos that come right up. Start watching. Start watching. Okay? That will help you. On my Patreon channel, I do post quizzes for coding quizzes. I also post anatomy, medical terminology quizzes as well. You do not have to be deep into your coding journey in order to join my Patreon channel. Any level, okay, any level, whether you are just brand new and barely starting and learning your medical terminology, there's plenty of medical terminology worksheets on my Patreon channel. Patreon is a lot like YouTube, but you pay to support the creator, which is me. There's a $15 minimum pledge per month. You do not have to subscribe past a month, but whatever I've posted, you will have access to at $15 per month, and that is the minimum pledge. And like I said, you do not have to subscribe past a month, but you get access to all the worksheets and all of the resources that I don't share here on YouTube. So that's just something that if you're interested in, that is available to you. Okay. So with that said, one other thing too, Patreon allows people to join for free, but I don't post free content. The only thing that is free that I post is usually announcements like about the channel, about YouTube, or like when I was featured in Forbes, my channel was mentioned in Forbes. That's the kind of thing I post there, okay, for on my free level. So, but if you're looking for free content that I post, I don't do that, because my Patreons that do pledge per month are there because they're pledging per month. And so that's who I'm going to give all of that to, because when I've tried to do free content before, especially here on YouTube, which is why I put it on Patreon, it's just not well received. It's people, there's too many ungrateful people out there, so unfortunately. But with that said, please start. If you have no background in medical, you will start with medical terminology, anatomy, pathophysiology, and all that good stuff. Get started, okay? Just start listening. Get a workbook. Go to the public library. Get a workbook, okay? If you can't afford coding books right now, see if your public library has coding manuals. Sometimes they do. And if you are done with your medical coding studies and maybe you're working and you want to get rid of your coding manuals, take them to the public library. And especially if you haven't littered them all up with tabs and writing and highlighting, if they're still in good shape, the library will take them, okay? Because you can pass that on to somebody else that's going to learn, all right? But that's just something that you guys got to know. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. But whatever you do, start. Quit asking questions and start moving, okay? Because the more you stand around asking questions, the more you're going to start overthinking things, and you're not even going to move and do anything. Just saying. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.